we begin seeking the blessings of the greatest name of God, Allah, the All-Merciful, the Compassionate, and we ask that He send the best of blessings and most perfect of peace upon our guide, upon our beloved leader, our Prophet Mohammad, and upon his family and his companions in their entirety. I'm really happy to be here this evening. I'm very tired, but I'm very happy at the same time. And inshallah, I really, we have time constraints. Usually I like to make this more interactive. I like to ask questions, get your feedback, and so I'll try to keep some of that even with the time constraints. Inshallah, we're going to get right into this. I just have a disclaimer. Whenever this subject is discussed, I've been involved in this for going on about 20 years, and there's a number of objections that are usually raised. Brother, this is nationalism, this is racism. Why are you talking about this? We're just Muslim. And I just want to say that the Prophet ﷺ, there are many ahadith where he addressed what we know as asabiyah, or being fanatical about your ethnicity or your group or your tribe. And he said that asabiyah is that you assist your group, your tribe, in oppression. But recognizing historical facts and the historical record of a particular group, in this case we're dealing with people of African descent, that in and of itself is not racism, it's not nationalism, it's not tribalism. Second, the Messenger of Allah, he used to discuss these things with the companions of the Prophet. They would talk about the history of the Arabs, they would talk about the history of Africans, he would talk about the history of different prophets, and with the intention that people take ibrah, that they take a lesson from it, that they can use to elevate themselves spiritually and materially. And then third, this is just one story. Within Islam, there are many stories. There's the story of the Arab contribution to Islam, of the Indo-Pakistani contribution to Islam, of the Chinese contribution to Islam, and so on and so forth. Every people has their story, and what I would like to see, and what I believe is key to us resolving a lot of the conflicts that we see in our masajid between so-called indigenous Muslims and immigrant Muslims, or even the ethnic divide that we see at a lot of our masajid, is learning each other's stories. And I would like to see, inshallah, more of these kinds of presentations about different Muslim communities, regardless of their ethnic background, so that we understand where everyone's coming from. What's your contribution? What are your struggles? What are your accomplishments? And what are your goals as a collective group? And I think the more we do that, the more we'll see that we have a lot more in common than not. So we'll start with that, inshallah ta'ala. The title of this presentation, The Black Contribution to Islam, Contribution to Islam, Sultans, Sages, and Scholars. Of course, what I wanted to do is just give a snapshot at some of the most prominent political authorities in our history as people of African descent within Islam. The sages. A sage is a wise person, a person known for their sagacity. And so this is also going to highlight not just political rulers, but people who are known for their knowledge, their spiritual knowledge, their mystical knowledge, and of course scholars. That's well known, ulama. And this is just this is the logo for an organization that I recently founded. Do these symbols mean anything to anybody in here? Does anyone know what any of this means? No. Yes. Jenyame, okay. What is that? All right, it means, okay, so these are three symbols. The three symbols, all right. This is Janyame. It's a symbol of the Akan people from Ghana. Anyone ever heard of the Akan people? The Akan people. They're an ancient people. They're part of the Ashanti kingdom, right? And this is a symbol that means only God. It means a lot of other things, right? But it points to the understanding of the supreme being. And a lot of times when people think of native African religions, they think of just people who are just mushriks, right? They just worship idols or, you know. But when you look at a lot of African religions, even when you go back to Egypt, you'll see there's an understanding of the oneness of the Creator. And what later became different deities or different gods, like when you look at the Orishas of the Yoruba religion, you have Shango and Obatala and Ogun and, you know, really a lot of these were either attributes of Allah Ta'ala that were then separated from Allah, worship as independent gods, or they were angels, right? Angels that people deified. This right here is another symbol from the Akan. It's a star and crescent. And a lot of us know the star and crescent from Islam. The Ottoman Empire made it very popular. It wasn't used by the Prophet ﷺ, so to speak, but it became a symbol that Muslims used. The Akan people also use this star and crescent, even the ones who are not Muslim. But what do they use it for? They use it to indicate the balance in the universe between opposites, between the male and the female, between good and evil, between active and passive. It's like the African yin-yang, right, so to speak. And then, of course, on the outside, this is a likeness of the sandal of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Many of our scholars have passed this down in their books of his shama'il, of his outward traits. So his sandal looked like this. And if you go to the Topkapi Museum in Turkey, in Istanbul, you'll see a representation of the sandal. It's a sacred symbol that Muslims have used for quite a while. All right, khair. Bismillah. Go right ahead. Okay, tayyib. So this is the prelude to the presentation. There are a number of images here. What does this look like to you? Pyramid. What else? What else? Okay. All right. It's a masjid. It's a masjid. And one of the things that I really want to drive home to you is that Africans, people from the continent of Africa, have and had a continuous culture that they have kept to this very day, wherever they are on the earth. And this structure, this pyramid, which is the most stable three-dimensional structure known to humankind, was used by Africans in Egypt early on. It was used as a tomb, right, for the kings. But as the Africans traveled from East Africa into the interior, they kept this. And if you go to Sudan today, if you go to Mali today, if you go to Senegal, you'll see masajid that look just like this. So this is like it's like the emblem of African culture, the pyramid structure. And this on the side, who knows what this is?
That's a manuscript.
It's a manuscript of what, though? What is it?
I don't know.
Every Muslim, especially every Muslim of African descent should know what this is. You should have this on your wall at home. This is the letter that Prophet Mohammad ﷺ sent to An-Najashi, to the Negus of Abyssinia, to the king of Abyssinia. It's the letter that he had written to him. My teacher, who a lot of this presentation is based on the work of my first teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Sharif of the Sankore Institute. Anyone here know Sheikh Muhammad Sharif? Yeah, a lot of this is his work. He calls this the original message to the black man. For those of you who know the history of the Nation of Islam, that might resonate with you. So go ahead. All right, this is in Mali. Similar structure, right? The same. They had no problem, and what I want you to understand is they had no problem. The Muslims in Africa and the Muslims who came here during the Middle Passage had no problem using cultural structures, cultural symbols from their land, from their people within Islam. As long as those structures did not go against the Quran and Sunnah. There was continuity. Go ahead. That was the Sankore Masjid University that you just saw. It was an incredible, and you will be hearing more about it later. These are men making rope. Keep going. These are teachers in Sudan. This is a picture of Muhammad Sharif right here. You might not be able to see it, but that's him when he was a very, very young man in Sudan. And that's him writing. He's an artist, he's a historian. So he mastered on calligraphy. All right, go ahead. All right, fine. So this presentation, I actually first gave it in Charleston, South Carolina. They were having a commemoration of the history of West Africans in Charleston. Charleston, as I'm sure you know, was the largest slave port in the United States. Just like Gorée is the largest slave port in Africa, where 20 million Africans from all over the continent, all the way from Ethiopia, came through Gorée Island in Senegal before they were brought to the Caribbean islands, to South America, or to the mainland, North America. So I gave this in Charleston. There's a lot of African history in Charleston, South Carolina, a lot of Islamic history in Charleston. So I wanted the people who I was talking to, a lot of them were not Muslim. I wanted them to have an idea of what these men and women, these Muslim men and women were carrying in their hearts. And one of the lies, one of the fallacies of American history is that these Africans came here with uncivilized. They were barbaric. They didn't know how to read, they didn't know how to write, they didn't have any religion. And one of the common myths that's taught about this tragedy, the transatlantic slave trade, is that really at the end of the day it was worth it. Because these Africans got educated, right? They got the gospel of Jesus Christ, peace and blessings be upon him and his mother, right? And they got European civilization. So I wanted them to understand that this is what these people were believing in. So this is an ayah from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So they have this understanding, and we have this understanding, that Islam is not something new. It's primordial. It's the fitrah of Allah. That it's something innate, that's instinctive within every human being. And when they came here, this is a part of their worldview. It's part of their paradigm. Inshallah, next slide. Can I get some water? Some water, please. But Islam, inner peace through willing surrender and submission to the Creator. That's what the word Islam means. Inner peace through willing surrender and surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these men and women, these Africans, this is what they, many of them who were scholars, many of them were sages. This is what they understood as their way of life. And if you can imagine these people being brought on slave ships, being deprived of the rights that we spoke about earlier, right? We did the khutbah today, what are called the objectives of the divine law, the maqasid of the sharia. These are the 6 principles that Islam revolves around. Everything that's halal, everything that's haram, revolves around these 6 objectives. You can go to the Quran, go to the Hadith, you'll find each of these at work. So, what I wanted, the reason why I included this before I got into the history, was I wanted the people I was presenting to in Charleston to understand that these are people that had a sense of their dignity and their worth and their rights and responsibility. And they were being deprived of all of these things. They couldn't pray. Their nakedness was exposed and so on and so forth. They were being killed and thrown to sharks, and families were being set. Everything that they held as sacred was being undermined. Right? So Islam is based on three dimensions, based on the hadith that we heard this morning, this afternoon, the khutbah, the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam, which is a sahih hadith, that Islam is based on Iman, Islam, and Ihsan. Right? And these brothers and sisters understood this. If you study the books of African scholars going back 1,000, people think Islam in Black Africa is young. I partly grew up in Nigeria. If you go to the Central Masjid in Kano, Nigeria, Kano, that masjid and the community around it has been there for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Every Friday at that masjid in Kano, 50,000 people just at the Central Masjid. And that's not the only masjid in the city, okay? Right? That's just one masjid. Islam has deep roots there. It's not new. So, sometimes people think, well, yeah, East Africa, the Hijrah, but, Islam has deep roots even in West Africa. So, they understood this. And we have a lot of brothers and sisters today who think Islam is just Iman. Right? And you hear them, Aqidah,